5 in the morning. The city still dark. Ryan Carter woke to urgent knocking at his apartment door. He stumbled out of bed, half asleep, expecting maybe a neighbor or building maintenance. He opened the door and froze. Standing in the dim hallway was Eleanor Brooks, his boss, the CEO of the company where he worked as her personal assistant. She had just finalized her divorce 3 days ago. She was not crying. She was not shouting. She just stood there, eyes hollow, and whispered something he never expected to hear. A private meeting. A confession no one saw coming. Ryan had been working for Eleanor Brooks for nearly 4 years. He started as her executive assistant when she took over as CEO, and over time, he became the person she relied on most. He managed her schedule, screened her calls, handled the details she did not have time for. He knew her preferences, her routines, the way she took her coffee. He also knew when to speak and when to stay silent. Their relationship was built on trust, but it never crossed the line. She was his boss. He was her assistant. That was the boundary, and both of them respected it. Ryan was 33 years old. He lived in a small apartment on the east side of the city with his son, a 7-year-old boy named Ethan. Ryan's wife had left them 3 years ago. She said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she needed to find herself, whatever that meant. She had not been back since. Ryan raised Ethan alone. He worked long hours, but he made sure his son had what he needed. Stability, routine, a father who showed up. Ryan did not talk much about his personal life at work. People knew he had a kid, but that was about it. He kept things private because it was easier that way. Eleanor Brooks was different. She was 41, sharp, always composed. She ran the company with a kind of cold efficiency that people respected, but rarely liked. She did not smile much. She did not do small talk. She made decisions quickly and expected everyone else to keep up. Ryan had seen her fire people without hesitation when they failed to deliver. He had also seen her work 16-hour days without complaint, pushing herself harder than anyone else in the building. She was not cruel, just distant. It was like she had built a wall around herself, and no one was allowed to see what was behind it. 3 months ago, Eleanor told Ryan she was getting a divorce. She did not make a big announcement. She just mentioned it one afternoon while they were going over her schedule. She said the paperwork was moving forward, that her lawyer was handling it. Ryan nodded and said he was sorry to hear that. She thanked him and moved on to the next item on the agenda. That was how Eleanor dealt with things. She compartmentalized. Work was work. Personal life stayed personal. Ryan did not ask questions, and she did not offer details. The divorce was finalized 3 days ago. Ryan saw the email confirmation on her calendar. There was a meeting with her lawyer at 9 in the morning, and then nothing else scheduled for the rest of the day. Eleanor left the office early that afternoon. She did not say where she was going. Ryan assumed she wanted to be alone, and he did not push. The next day, she came back to work as if nothing had changed. Same focus, same intensity. But Ryan noticed small things. The way her hand shook slightly when she signed documents, the way she stared out the window during phone calls, the way she stayed late even when there was no reason to. She was holding it together, but just barely. Now she was standing at his door at 5 in the morning. Ryan blinked, still trying to process what he was seeing. Eleanor looked nothing like the woman who walked through the office every day. Her hair was loose, not pulled back the way she usually wore it. She had on jeans and a plain sweater, no makeup, no jewelry. Her eyes were red, but there were no tears. She looked exhausted, like she had not slept in days. Ryan cleared his throat. He asked if she was okay. Eleanor did not answer right away. She just stood there, staring at him like she was trying to decide whether coming here was a mistake. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. She said she did not know where else to go. She said she could not be alone right now, and he was the only person she felt safe talking to. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He glanced back into the apartment. Ethan was still asleep in his room. Ryan did not know what to do. This was his boss. This was Eleanor Brooks. She did not ask for help. She did not show weakness. But here she was, standing in his doorway, looking like she was about to fall apart. Ryan stepped back and told her to come in. Eleanor shook her head. She said she did not want to intrude. She said she just needed to talk to someone. And if he could spare a few minutes, maybe they could go somewhere else. Ryan thought about Ethan. He could not leave his son alone in the apartment, but he also could not turn Eleanor away. He told her to wait a moment. He went back inside and checked on Ethan. The boy was still sound asleep, curled up under his blankets. Ryan wrote a quick note and left it on the kitchen counter in case Ethan woke up before he got back. He grabbed his jacket and his phone, then stepped out into the hallway. Eleanor was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, staring at the floor. Ryan locked the door behind him and asked where she wanted to go. Eleanor looked at him and said anywhere, just not here, not her place either. Somewhere quiet. Ryan thought for a moment, then suggested a bar a few blocks away. It opened early for the morning shift workers. It was never crowded at this hour. Eleanor nodded. They walked in silence. The streets were empty. The city was still waking up. A few cars passed by, headlights cutting through the darkness. Ryan kept his hands in his pockets, his mind racing. He did not understand why Eleanor had come to him. They worked together, yes, but they weren't friends. They did not hang out after hours. They did not share personal stories. So why him? Why now? He wanted to ask, but he did not. He just kept walking beside her, matching her pace. When they reached the bar, Ryan pushed open the door. The place was dim, lit only by a few overhead lights. There were two people at the counter, both nursing drinks and staring at their phones. The bartender looked up when they walked in, but did not say anything. Ryan led Eleanor to a booth in the back corner. They sat across from each other. Eleanor folded her hands on the table and stared at them. Ryan waited. He did not know what to say. He was not good at this. He was good at schedules and logistics and making sure things ran smoothly. He was not good at emotions. But Eleanor was sitting across from him, and she looked like she was holding herself together by a thread. So he stayed quiet and waited for her to speak. Eleanor finally spoke. She said the marriage had been over for years. She said she and her husband had stopped being a couple long before the divorce papers were ever filed. They lived in the same house but in different worlds. He had his work, his friends, his life. She had hers. They barely talked. When they did, it was about logistics. Who would be home for dinner? Whose turn it was to deal with the bills? Surface-level things that did not matter. She said it was like living with a stranger who occasionally showed up at the same address. Ryan listened without interrupting. Eleanor kept her eyes on the table as she spoke. She said her husband had blamed her for everything. He told her she cared more about the company than their marriage. He said she was cold, impossible to reach, that she had built a wall so high no one could climb it. Eleanor admitted he was right about some of it. She had poured everything into her work because it was the one thing she could control. The one place where effort actually led to results. Her marriage had been failing for so long that she stopped trying to fix it. She just let it die quietly. The bartender came over and asked if they wanted anything. Ryan ordered coffee. Eleanor shook her head at first, then changed her mind and asked for the same. The bartender nodded and walked away. Eleanor looked up at Ryan for the first time since they sat down. She said she did not know why she came to his apartment. She said it did not make sense, even to her. But after the divorce was finalized, she spent 2 days alone in her house, staring at the walls, and she realized she had no one to call. No close friends, no family she felt comfortable talking to. Just colleagues and acquaintances who would say the right things, but not mean any of it. Ryan did not know what to say. He told her he was sorry. Eleanor shook her head. She said she did not want pity. She just wanted someone to listen without judging her. Someone who would not try to fix her or tell her everything would be fine. Ryan understood that. He had felt the same way after his wife left. People meant well, but their reassurances always felt hollow. Sometimes, you just needed someone to sit with you in the mess without trying to clean it up. The bartender brought their coffee. Ryan wrapped his hands around the cup, letting the warmth sink into his skin. Eleanor took a sip and then set the cup down carefully. She said Ryan was the only person in her life who treated her like a human being instead of a title. She said most people saw her as the CEO, the boss, the person who made decisions and signed checks. But Ryan had always been different. He did not grovel or try to impress her. He did his job well, but he also pushed back when he thought she was wrong. He treated her with respect, but not the kind that came from fear. That mattered to her more than he probably realized. Ryan felt something shift in his chest. He was not sure what to call it. It was not attraction, not exactly. It was something quieter, a recognition. He had spent 4 years working beside Eleanor, managing her schedule, keeping her life organized, and he had never really thought about what she needed outside of work. He had assumed she had it all figured out, that her life was as controlled and efficient as her office. But sitting across from her now, he could see how wrong that assumption had been. She was just as lost as anyone else. Maybe more so because she had been pretending otherwise for so long. Eleanor asked Ryan about his son. She said she knew he was a single father, but they had never really talked about it. Ryan was surprised by the question. He told her Ethan was 7. Smart kid. Loved building things with blocks and asking questions about how everything worked. Ryan said raising him alone was hard. But it was also the best thing in his life. Ethan kept him grounded, gave him a reason to get up every morning and keep going, even when things felt impossible. Eleanor smiled faintly. She said she envied that, having something so clear and meaningful. She said her work had always been her anchor, but it was not the same. It did not love her back. It did not need her the way a child needed a parent. Ryan thought about that. He said work could give you purpose, but it could not give you connection. Eleanor looked at him for a long moment, and Ryan realized he had just said something she had been thinking, but could not put into words. They sat in silence for a while. The bar was starting to fill up a little. A few more people trickled in, ordering breakfast and coffee before heading to their shifts. Ryan checked his phone. It was almost 6:30. He needed to get back soon. Ethan would be waking up, and Ryan did not want him to be confused or worried. But he also did not want to leave Eleanor alone. Not like this. He asked if she was going to be okay. Eleanor nodded, though it did not look convincing. She said she would go home and get some rest. Ryan did not believe her, but he did not push. They stood up and walked out of the bar together. The sun was starting to rise, casting a pale light over the streets. Eleanor thanked Ryan for listening. She said she knew it was strange, showing up at his door like that. Ryan told her it was fine. He said if she ever needed to talk again, she could call him. Eleanor looked at him, and for a moment, she seemed like she wanted to say something else, but she just nodded and walked away. Ryan watched her go, then turned and headed back to his apartment. When he got home, Ethan was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. The boy looked up and asked where Ryan had been. Ryan told him he had to help a friend with something. Ethan accepted the answer without question and went back to eating. Ryan poured himself another cup of coffee and sat down across from his son. He felt exhausted, but also strangely unsettled. Something had shifted between him and Eleanor, and he did not know what it meant or where it would lead. The next morning, Ryan went to work as usual. Eleanor was already in her office when he arrived. She was on a conference call, her voice calm and professional. Ryan set her schedule on her desk and stepped back. When she finished the call, she looked up at him and said good morning. Her tone was neutral, like nothing had happened. Ryan matched her energy. He went through the day's agenda, confirmed a few meetings, and left her office. They did not mention the bar. They did not mention the conversation. It was like the whole thing had been erased. But Ryan noticed small changes. Eleanor glanced at him more often during meetings. She asked his opinion on things she would have normally decided on her own. She stayed in the office later than usual, and sometimes Ryan caught her staring out the window, lost in thought. He wondered if she was regretting coming to him, or if she was just trying to figure out what happened between them. Ryan did not know. He tried to focus on his work and keep things professional, but it was harder than it should have been. By the end of the week, the rumors started. Someone in accounting mentioned seeing Eleanor and Ryan leaving the building together one evening. Someone else claimed they had spotted them at a coffee shop outside the office. The stories were vague and mostly wrong, but they spread quickly. Ryan heard his name brought up in conversations that stopped the moment he walked into a room. He ignored it at first, but the whispers kept growing. People were talking. And in a company like this, talk could be dangerous. Eleanor called Ryan into her office one afternoon. She closed the door behind him and asked if he had heard the rumors. Ryan admitted he had. Eleanor said she did not care what people thought, but she knew it put him in a difficult position. Ryan told her it was fine. He said people always gossiped about things they did not understand. Eleanor looked at him carefully. She said she did not want him to lose his job or his reputation because of her. Ryan said he was not worried about that. But even as he said it, he knew it was not entirely true. He had a son to think about. He could not afford to lose this job. He could not afford to take risks. Eleanor seemed to sense his hesitation. She said they should keep their distance for a while, just to let things settle. Ryan agreed. It was the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But as he left her office, he felt a strange sense of loss, like something fragile had been broken before it even had a chance to form. 2 weeks later, the company announced a major restructuring. Eleanor had been working on it for months, but the timing felt brutal. Several departments were being merged. Some positions were being eliminated. The entire leadership team was under pressure to justify their roles and prove their value. Ryan watched as the stress mounted. Eleanor worked longer hours than ever. She skipped meals. She barely slept. Ryan tried to help where he could, managing her schedule, keeping people from overwhelming her, but he could see the toll it was taking. She was burning out, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. One night, Ryan was the last person left in the office besides Eleanor. She was still at her desk, going over reports. Ryan knocked on her door and asked if she needed anything before he left. Eleanor looked up. She said she was fine, but her eyes told a different story. Ryan hesitated. He asked if she had eaten. Eleanor shook her head. Ryan told her to take a break. He said he would order food, and they could eat together before he went home. Eleanor looked like she wanted to refuse, but then she nodded. They sat in her office, eating takeout in silence. Eleanor finally broke it. She said the restructuring was necessary, but it felt like tearing the company apart. She said she knew people would lose their jobs, and she hated that. But if she did not make these changes, the entire company could collapse. Ryan told her she was doing what she had to do. Eleanor looked at him. She said, that was the problem. She always did what she had to do. She never did what she wanted. She never took risks. She never let herself feel anything that could not be managed or controlled. Ryan did not know how to respond. He told her feelings were not supposed to be managed. Eleanor laughed, but it was a bitter sound. She said that was easy for him to say. Ryan asked what she meant. Eleanor said he had built a life around something real, his son, his responsibilities. He made sacrifices because they mattered. But her sacrifices felt empty. She had given up so much for a career that left her with nothing but an empty house and a title that did not mean anything when she went home at night. Ryan felt something crack open inside him. He told Eleanor she was not as alone as she thought. He said she had people who cared about her, even if she could not see it. Eleanor looked at him, and her expression softened. She asked if he was one of those people. Ryan did not answer right away. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell her that he thought about her more than he should, that he worried about her. That sitting here with her felt more real than anything else in his life right now. But he could not say any of that, because if he did, everything would change, and change was dangerous. Instead, Ryan said he cared about her as a colleague, as someone he respected. Eleanor nodded slowly, like she understood what he was really saying. She thanked him for the food and told him he should go home to his son. Ryan stood up and left her office. As he walked out of the building, he felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on him. He had just lied to her, and to himself, and he did not know if he could keep doing it. The next day, Eleanor made the announcement. The restructuring was moving forward. Ryan's position was safe, but several of his colleagues were not so lucky. The office felt tense and fragile. People moved through the halls like they were walking on glass. Eleanor handled everything with her usual efficiency, but Ryan could see the cracks forming. She was holding it together, but only barely, and he was starting to realize that if she fell, he might fall with her. Ryan went home that night and sat with Ethan while the boy did his homework. Ethan asked if Ryan was okay. Ryan said he was just tired. Ethan nodded and went back to his worksheet. Ryan watched his son, and he thought about Eleanor. He thought about the life he had built, the safe, stable life that kept Ethan secure, and he thought about the risk of letting someone in, the risk of caring about someone who could complicate everything. He did not know what the right answer was. He just knew that something had to give. And soon. The restructuring hit harder than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, 15 people lost their jobs. The office felt different after that. Quieter. More cautious. People stopped making small talk in the break room. They kept their heads down and focused on their work, afraid they might be next. Eleanor moved through it all like she was made of stone. She attended every meeting, signed every document, delivered every difficult message. But Ryan could see the cost. She was not sleeping. She was not eating. She was running on fumes and willpower, and it was only a matter of time before she collapsed. Ryan tried to keep his distance like they had agreed, but it was impossible. He was still her assistant. He still saw her every day. He still noticed the way her hands shook when she thought no one was looking. The way she stared at her computer screen without really seeing it. The way she stayed in her office long after everyone else had gone home. Ryan wanted to help, but he did not know how. And every time he thought about reaching out, he remembered Ethan. He remembered the life he had built, the stability his son needed, the risk of losing it all if he made the wrong choice. One evening, Ryan was putting Ethan to bed when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Eleanor. She said she needed to talk to him. She said it was important. Ryan told Ethan goodnight and stepped into the hallway. He called her back. Eleanor answered on the first ring. Her voice was tight, strained. She said she could not do this anymore. Ryan asked what she meant. Eleanor said she could not keep pretending everything was fine. She said the restructuring was done. But she felt more alone than ever. She said she had spent her entire life building something that did not matter, and the only person who made her feel like herself was someone she wasn't allowed to be close to. Ryan felt his chest tighten. He told Eleanor to take a breath. He asked where she was. Eleanor said she was at home. Ryan told her to stay there. He said he would come over. Eleanor started to protest, but Ryan cut her off. He said she should not be alone right now. He hung up before she could argue. Ryan checked on Ethan. The boy was already asleep. Ryan called his neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Callahan, who sometimes watched Ethan when Ryan had to work late. She agreed to come over. Ryan left a note on the kitchen counter and grabbed his keys. He drove across the city to Eleanor's house. It was a large place in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of house that looked perfect from the outside, but felt empty on the inside. Ryan parked in the driveway and knocked on the door. Eleanor opened it almost immediately. She looked worse than he had ever seen her. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red. She was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, and she looked like she had been crying for hours. Ryan stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. He closed the door behind him and asked if she was okay. Eleanor shook her head. She said she wasn't okay. She said she had not been okay for a long time. Ryan followed her into the living room. They sat on the couch, and Eleanor finally broke. She said she had spent years convincing herself that success was enough, that if she worked hard enough, if she achieved enough, she would feel fulfilled. But the divorce had stripped away that illusion. It forced her to see what her life really was. A string of accomplishments that did not make her happy. A title that did not give her peace. A house that felt like a museum instead of a home. She said she did not know how to live any other way. She did not know how to be a person instead of a CEO. Ryan did not try to fix it. He just listened. Eleanor kept talking, her words spilling out like a dam had broken. She said she envied Ryan. She said he had something real. A son who loved him. A life that mattered beyond what he could produce or achieve. She said she did not have that. She had spent so long building walls to protect herself that she had locked herself inside. And now she was trapped. Ryan told her it was not too late. He said she could change. She could choose a different way to live. Eleanor looked at him with something like desperation. She asked if he really believed that. Ryan said he did. Eleanor asked Ryan why he came. She said he had every reason to stay away. The rumors, the risk to his job, his son. Ryan thought about that. He said he came because he cared about her, because sitting in his apartment and pretending he did not would have been worse. Eleanor's expression shifted. She asked if he meant that. Ryan said he did. He said he had been trying to ignore it, trying to keep things professional, but the truth was he thought about her all the time. He worried about her. He wanted her to be okay, and he did not know what that meant for either of them, but he was tired of pretending it did not exist. Eleanor stared at him. She said she felt the same way. She said she had been fighting it for weeks, telling herself it was just loneliness or weakness, but it was not. It was real, and she did not know what to do with that. Ryan did not know either. He told her they did not have to figure it out tonight. They just had to be honest with each other. Eleanor nodded slowly. She said she wanted that. She said she was tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being alone. Ryan reached out and took her hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt like crossing a line they could not uncross. Eleanor held on like she was afraid to let go. They sat there for a long time, not saying anything. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that came after something important had been said, after something had shifted. Ryan knew this changed everything. He knew there would be consequences, questions, complications. But sitting there with Eleanor, holding her hand, he realized something. Avoiding risk had not kept him safe. It had just kept him stuck. He had spent 3 years building a life that was stable and predictable, and he had convinced himself that was enough. But it was not. Ethan needed a father who was present and engaged, yes. But he also needed a father who was alive, who took chances, who showed him what it meant to choose connection over fear. Ryan told Eleanor they needed to set boundaries. He said if they were going to do this, they had to do it right. No hiding. No secrets. No pretending at work while something else happened outside of it. Eleanor agreed. She said she did not want to be the boss who had an affair with her assistant. She said that was not who she was. And it was not what this was. Ryan said they needed to be equals, not CEO and assistant, just two people trying to figure out what this meant. Eleanor nodded. She said she wanted that too. Ryan stood up. He said he needed to get home. Ethan would be waking up soon, and he did not want to leave Mrs. Callahan too long. Eleanor walked him to the door. She thanked him for coming. Ryan told her to call him if she needed anything. Eleanor said she would. As Ryan turned to leave, Eleanor called his name. He looked back. She said she did not know what came next, but she was glad she did not have to figure it out alone. Ryan smiled. He said he was glad too. When Ryan got home, Ethan was still asleep. Mrs. Callahan was watching television in the living room. She asked if everything was okay. Ryan said it was. He thanked her and walked her to the door. After she left, Ryan sat on the couch and thought about everything that had just happened. He thought about Eleanor, about the risk, about the choice he was making. He did not know if it was the right one, but he knew it was real. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. The next morning, Ryan and Eleanor talked. They decided to take things slowly. They agreed to keep their relationship separate from work. Ryan would continue as her assistant, but they would not let their personal connection interfere with their professional responsibilities. It was not a perfect solution, but it was honest. And honesty was something both of them needed. Over the next few weeks, they built something careful and deliberate. They had dinner together once a week. They talked on the phone late at night after Ethan was asleep. They learned about each other in ways they never had before. Eleanor met Ethan for the first time at a park. She was nervous, but Ethan liked her. He asked her questions about her job and told her about the rocket he was building out of cardboard. Eleanor listened, like his words mattered. Ryan watched them together, and he felt something settle inside him. This wasn't just about him and Eleanor. It was about building something real, something that included all the parts of their lives, not just the easy ones. Eleanor started making changes too. She hired a new assistant to take over some of Ryan's responsibilities, so their professional relationship would not be so intertwined. She set boundaries at work. She left the office at reasonable hours. She spent weekends doing things that had nothing to do with the company. She was learning how to be a person again, and Ryan could see the difference. She smiled more. She relaxed. She was not the same woman who had shown up at his door at 5 in the morning. She was someone new, someone lighter. They did not have all the answers. They did not know where this would lead or how it would end. But they had made a choice, not to be safe, not to hide, but to be honest with themselves and each other. And that was enough. Position did not define value. Safety was not always the right choice. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do was listen to your heart, but only if you did it with responsibility and respect for yourself and the people you cared about. Ryan and Eleanor were learning that, together, one careful step at a time,